How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Gideon Falls Volume 1, The Black Barn. This is written by Jeff Lemire with art by Andrea Sorrentino, and the back is quick to point out this is the same team that worked on Old Man Logan and Green Arrow. Pretty cool team here. Jeff Lemire, I've read a bunch of his stuff, Descender, Robin and Batman, lots of really cool stuff. He did Sweet Tooth, which turned into a Netflix show recently. This is put out by Image Comics and collects the first 6 issues. And this is a really fun conspiracy horror book. Really, really cool. In this book, you get 2 lead characters. You get this guy, Norden. He has OCD, and he feels compelled to dig through trash and look for the special pieces. And he'll find a little chunk of wood or a nail or something, and he'll take them back to his apartment and catalog them. And what he says is he's finding pieces of the Black Barn. The Black Barn is this mysterious barn that will appear out of nowhere and influence people that are around it to do horrible, terrible things. But what exactly is going on with it? And you really do feel sorry for this poor guy, because in almost any other circumstance you would say it's just a mental illness, you need help, you need to listen to your therapist. But this is like the one case where this big crazy thing's actually real, and who's going to believe him? Then you get your other guy, Father Wilfred or Father Fred, and he's kind of a down-on-his-luck Catholic priest, and he's having, trouble. Something terrible happened to him in the past, and he doesn't know how much he believes anymore, and he's perfectly happy living his life, just doing some teaching, and he doesn't want a church. But this small town, Gideon Falls, all of a sudden, they lose their priest, and the bishop says, you need to go and be this new priest for this church. When he's there, he witnesses a murder and actually sees the Black Barn. He's one of the few people to actually have ever seen the fabled Black Barn. It's a pretty big deal. So he's sort of thrust into this conspiracy too. And I really do like Father Fred is one of those characters that I feel like a bunch of other writers would have made him too cliche. The priest that's questioning faith. We've seen this before, but it's not like he's just, grumpy or upset or too mopey. You get to learn a whole bunch of his, his way of going about things. He really wants to be a good guy. He really wants to help people. And you can see that his crisis of faith, maybe it's not so much faith in religion, but maybe it's more faith in himself that he needs to learn. And you get to learn a little bit about him. This is only volume 1. I suspect more to come. But overall, a really good guy just trying to do his best, thrown into this crazy situation. But yeah, it's about faith. It's about who will believe all this stuff that shouldn't sound real, but it totally is. It's a conspiracy, and that's really one of the things that makes the Black Barn element so cool here. They don't show too terribly much of the barn. They keep it at a distance, and you see a bunch of stuff. There's newspaper clippings all over this guy's wall. You hear little bits about the history. People have seen it before, and it's sort of like this urban legend, and a lot of people don't believe it. And you start to hear so much about this barn. It's such a really great build-up. It really, I feel like, this reminds me of things like, Stephen King's It, when they're looking at the clown all through history. In fact, this book is done so well, I'd say this is probably the closest a comic book has gotten to being like a Stephen King novel, Really, really cool. And you do actually get a little bit with the Black Barn towards the end. And I will say, it is one of the most trippy scenes I've seen in comics in a while. When you actually see the big, source of all this fear and evil, it gets pretty out there, but they do it sparingly. You know, it's not all craziness all the time, and I really do like this title. Having seen Jeff Lemire do things like Descender, you know, he does a lot of stuff with like young kid characters, but this is a very mature book for him, you know, and you can really tell like this is a really creepy, serious drama about this legendary barn, and it is really, really dark. And overall, I really enjoyed Gideon Falls, and I'm really looking forward to reading Volume 2. I believe there's 6 of these, so I want to get my hands on all of them as quick as I can and just read through this whole thing. But a good, dark horror conspiracy comic. If you guys want to see a little more, I'm going to switch to the close-up camera. I'll show you more on this release, and I'll give you guys a little bit more of the story, and we'll get to see some of that art. So without further ado, to the close-up camera. Okay, here we are in the castle, and we're going to take a closer look at this release. We see the title and the credits up here, Gideon Falls, and then we get this nice map cover, which I thought was pretty cool. You can see it's this sort of satellite view of the city, but then we pull out, and it's not really the city, it's our main character Norden's face. Here's his eye and his ear, and there's his famous mask there. There's the image logo on the side. In the back, we have someone walking up to the Black Barn, the legend of the Black Barn. And if we go to the bottom, there's some pretty cool things here. Collects Gideon Falls number 1 through 6. That's pretty cool. A lot of indie comics these days are doing like 4-issue series or 5-issue series, but this is the full 6. That's your standard graphic novel length. And we have a MSRP of $9.99, which is something that Image does every now and then. The idea that, hey, we want to make it easier for you guys to explore new titles. Let's make Volume 1 a little cheaper so you can dive in and check out more stories and hopefully find the one that's good for you. And a whole splash of quotes about the story. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the plot. I'll be avoiding major spoilers, but I do want to analyze the book a little bit and show you guys some really cool artwork. So let's open this up. Gideon Falls, the Black Barn. We open it up, and there's Norden there. He's upside down, and he's about to root through the trash. He is really, you know, tearing it up, looking through all the garbage, and he doesn't think he's going to find anything. But he does find what looks to be a little scrap of wood, and he puts it in his jar to contain it. Norden's also quite famously got this mask on. But anyway, he gets to his apartment, and look at this art here. There's so many shots in this book where I'm like, wow, that must have taken forever to do. But anyway, Norden puts the jar with the rest of his specimens. Another really cool shot here. And then he prays, and once again he's upside down. But check this out. It's torn away. Not really, but like there's a little tear texture. So it's a fake tear in the book, like this panel at the bottom got ripped off, and now we see into the void behind the page as he says amen. So that's pretty cool. But check this out though. We flip this page over, and there's our credits. So we actually got a cold opening before the credits here, which is pretty cool. But even though issue 1 had that cold opening, I do want to point out they still do break their issues up, which is something that not every comic does nowadays, and I really do like it. I want to know where an issue ends. So here's where 2 is, and there's another picture of one of the covers, another satellite view, but it's really a character's face. So I do like that the page breaks are still there. But anyway, Norden is collecting specimens from the garbage, and he starts to try to explain it to his therapist. Here's a really good double-page spread where you see all the photos of the little things he's found, and he's talking about what he thinks they mean. And you get this fun quote at the end. What if it's not God who is showing me these things? I'm worried it's the devil. And then the photographs get all ripped up and again into the void. But of course, Norden is talking to his therapist, and his therapist is trying to calm him down. He's apparently made a ton of progress, but she's worried he might be relapsing. And you see he is trying to listen. He's walking home on a rainy night, and he sees a nail that's a piece of the black barn, and he's going to try to leave it there, but he can't. And I love this art, it turns black and white and the nail's red, and he has to go pick it up. Red is used really well in this comic. So he's collecting pieces of the black barn. You get to see a little more as to why he's doing this and what his own personal backstory is. And it's always a question of the therapist is how much can you trust her, because she's not going to be inclined to believe this. And it's all about, how much do you open up to her about the black barn. But then when things get serious and she's going to have to, when she sees crazy stuff, can she believe that one of her patients who's supposedly delusional might actually be right and there might actually be some crazy evil magic out there? Like I said, a lot of this book is about faith, and how can you get a therapist to believe something like that? But then we meet our second character, Father Fred here. There's this nice shot of him going down to Gideon Falls, a nice quiet little town in the middle of nowhere, and we get these shots where the bishop is telling him he has to go. Something bad happened to him, and he doesn't really want to be a priest. He just wants to, sit in the building and teach other priests. And the way that he's kind of cropped out and you don't really see his face, I wonder what's up with the bishop. Does he know about the black barn? Is he sending him on purpose? But yeah, they tell him that he has to go and be a priest in Gideon Falls, and there's his church. I really do love this shot. This nice, cool colors, and he steps out and he looks up at it. Pretty cool. But he does meet this lady who's come to welcome him, an older lady with a hook for a hand, and he asks about the last priest. He's like, I heard he died, what happened there? And she doesn't really want to talk too much about it, so he's replacing this old priest that the town has known for years and years, because turns out they didn't find his body. He's gone missing, and, he doesn't really want to be doing this job. It's a big role, really important for the local people of the city. But yeah, he doesn't really want to be there. He doesn't know if he's good enough for this. But he goes and he's asleep one day in his house, and he hears something and gets up. Well, this next shot is crazy. It turns out the missing priest isn't dead, but here he is, bathed in a red light, looking crazy and otherworldly. So Father Fred has to get up and chase him into the field. And in the field, he becomes one of the few people to actually see the black barn. Oh my gosh, is that a menacing shot right there? But as crazy as the situation gets, he looks down at the ground, and the nice lady that welcomed him to town has been stabbed with her own hook hand. So he, of course, has to go tell the police, and the police aren't necessarily going to believe that there was a murder committed by a supposedly dead priest, and he has to kind of convince the cops there, and they're going to sort of investigate. And I do really like this cop character. Again, like Norden's therapist, is someone who's going to be rational, but is not going to believe your stories about a black barn. And she's a really good, well-developed character, too. The idea that she doesn't really believe in anything supernatural, and you find out why, and you find out more about her. But she also doesn't want to hear the words black barn, because in Gideon Falls, that's sort of a local legend, and everyone talks about the black barn, and no one necessarily believes it. But there are a few people. One of them is Dr. Sutton, and he's this cool guy with a big bushy beard, and he'll tell Father Fred all about the black barn. he's got a whole conspiracy room, and I do like these little red circles pointing out different stuff in the room, and you really get a sense of history with this black barn. Like there's more there than meets the eye. It's a real thing. So many people have seen it. And yeah, it's this really great ominous mystery, and they really do a whole bunch of build-up for when you do finally see it. You can tell that this thing is evil. But yeah, I really love the story, and I really do love the art here. The art is really dark, but with like something menacing behind it. I mean, for example, even just in the shadows here, when the shadows become black, they're scratched away all vertically, which is such a tiny little detail. And there's so many shots that you think, oh my gosh, that must have taken forever for the artist to do. But here's a good panel of the therapist throwing a bottle and breaking the mirror, but it didn't have to be this complex where, you know, she's on one face of the cube and different other things are on this other face, and they go and they break at the end. That's a crazy amount of detail. And then, of course, the color red is a common motif pointing things out throughout the book. And you get like this shot here where Norton's afraid and he's rigged up his house with booby traps, and each of the booby traps is pointed out by a little red circle, and there's a spiral running through the whole book. This art is so great at being super intense and really detail focused, yet still having that underground sense of dread about it, you know. So it's serious but with horror, which is great for a conspiracy horror book. I really love the story. I really love the art. Great book, and I really do want to pick up the rest of them. I think there are 6 total volumes in this series, and I really want to get out and read them all. Those should be fun. I just hope they keep up the pace. Volume 1 is really great. I'll try to get to Volume 2 pretty soon, because this was a really fun story. But yeah, definitely loved it. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my horror comics playlist. I've talked about a lot of stuff. Anthology horror, Parasomnia, the new Cullen Bunn book. So if you want to see me talk about more horror comics, you can find that in this playlist at the bottom. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very soon. Horror playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.